Okay, welcome to our latest Swampcast. It's Florida Georgia week. It's kind of had a different feel to it, Rob, just because here we are with two teams in the top 10, which has happened 5 times, but hadn't happened one time in the last, I think it's 18 years.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody saw this coming earlier in the year, Pat, when Florida lost to Kentucky, but they've been on an amazing run here and a very, very resilient team under Mullen, and I love the way in games they make adjustments and the players trust it and they get results.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about that in a minute. What was your first Florida Georgia game? I was trying to think about what it was. The first one you ever went to.
It might have been 66, the Spurrier thing.
I think that might have been my first one, too. We didn't even know each other then.
No.
We just happened to be in the same stadium. But we've been to probably over 40 each.
Yeah, it's been, when you think, I'd have to go back and count, Pat, it's been a lot.
It's been a lot.
But yeah.
Because we're old. But yeah, I think what you said there is when I was answering a questionnaire from Chip Towers about this game, and I said, he asked me about the one thing that Dan Mullen's done to turn things around here, and I said that's the biggest thing to me is these guys get, like they finally feel like this staff is going to put them in position to play, and they're getting that, and they get it more and more each week.
Yeah, and it gets reinforced when like you fall behind to Vanderbilt, and the coaches say, don't worry about anything, don't worry about the score, we're going to give you plays, they're going to work, and we're going to turn it around, and it worked, and now it reinforces that the coaches know what they're doing. And I don't think they had that trust for the old staff.
Well, and the other thing we found out this week, because they didn't really talk about it last year, was just how that Saturday morning, those guys,
what a mess
it was, and that they had almost no interest in playing the game, and it showed.
Well, yeah, you wake up on Saturday morning in the hotel, all of a sudden your phone's lighting up about your coach getting fired. Yeah. And how do you focus on a game after that, knowing that your coach is probably getting fired?
I told somebody the thing that I took from that game more than anything afterwards was McElwain sitting up there and admitting for the first time he hasn't been able to get the offense going, and that was his way of saying, you can't fire me for the death threats. Yeah. You're going to have to fire me on performance, which means I get my entire contract. And I just went, whoa, he's gone.
Yeah, there was no doubt. But at the end of that game, you knew it was over. And it was just a matter of time. It was only hours when it happened, really.
And of course, that game has nothing to do with this one, and this is what I wrote for tomorrow. There's a lot of things that have no real bearing. The history, Lindsey Scott, Treon Harris, Lito Shepard, none of that stuff has anything to do with it. But what does have something to do with it is the way these teams have played this year. And Georgia has not really, played up to, I think, what a lot of people thought they would. But still, they're 6-1 and ranked higher than Florida. Florida's played over, I think, their talent level. But I will say this, Robbie. I think before the season, going into the season, I thought that gap in talent was like this. And now, as we've seen the season go along, it's more like that.
Yeah, you watch Florida play, Pat. They don't have bad players on the team. Right. I mean, they've got really good players, and they're well coached right now. And the thing is, they're getting better every week. So Georgia can't say that because they just lost. So,
well,
I mean, you look at that way, Florida's got a little momentum in that regard, and I think that this team is focused on getting better every day in practice, getting better every Saturday. Yeah, and they've done it.
I think that Georgia is going to be fueled by that because more than Florida. Look, Florida seasons you could say is on the line, but Georgia's definitely is on the line.
When you look at the expectations heading in,
if they lose this game, they're out of everything they probably wanted to do. They still have a chance to go to the East, but it's not going to help. Really, to win the East and go to Atlanta just to get clubbed by Alabama. But
whoever goes is probably going to get clubbed by Alabama.
But here's one thing to know about Georgia is that they're very balanced on offense so far. They don't get a lot of interceptions. They don't get a lot of sacks either.
No, they don't.
They're actually, I think, last in the SEC.
And they're giving up some sacks too. So.
Yeah. But now I will say this: there's always something that gets thrown in here. We're not expecting. Certainly, a few years ago when they started Fatone Bauta, which was
a disaster that turned out to be for Georgia.
Good for Florida, bad for Georgia. But I would expect that we're going to see a little more Justin Fields in this game.
I'm sure you will, Pat, because if Georgia can't run the ball, Fromm's ineffective. When he's effective is when he does the play action thing. When he has to drop back in the pocket on 3rd and long, it's a different story.
You're going to see this, and they're going to run both quarterbacks on the field at the same time.
Yeah.
And now, Fields is getting the snap. He can lateral He can lateral to Fromm and throw the ball. And now it's going to be confusing for the defense, so they're going to have to stay disciplined in that regard.
Yeah, this is what happens on an open date, man.
Yep.
Different things.
Now, sometimes you overcoach, like Dave Roberts is over managing the Dodgers right now.
Yeah.
You can get too caught up in all that stuff, and it ends up backfiring on you. But Look, I think it's just this simple for Florida. They got to do what they're planning to win. They've got to create turnovers, not turn the ball over.
Stop the run.
Win the special teams. All those things that we've been talking about all year, which they didn't do 2 weeks ago against Vanderbilt and still found a way to win. But I don't think you can beat Georgia. I don't think you can beat Georgia playing like you did against Vanderbilt.
No, you can't. Not unless the second half maybe, but you play like that in the first half, the game's going to be over early.
Yeah, like last year.
Yeah. 21-0 with 7:38 to go in the first quarter.
Yeah, it was pretty quick. It was pretty quick, and it was kind of painless because I think at that point we were all just like, let's just get this thing over with.
Yeah, I know. When was the last time you were at a Florida-Georgia game? You knew it was over midway through the first quarter. And there was no doubt.
It's kind of funny. I was talking to Scott Strickland during the open day about, how at that point they're trying to figure out what they're going to do on the open day with the thing. Because look, there was a movement to get rid of McElwain that had nothing to do with those
the
two close losses, and then the death threats came, and it was like okay, now we got our
here
way
we go.
out.
Yeah, we're going.
But what if he had beaten Georgia? What would they have done then? We'll never know because they didn't even come close to it. But we'll see what happens this week. Obviously, the winner of this game has everything in front of him. The loser starts looking at, what bowl game can we go to?
Can we get to a New Year's Day bowl?
But I do feel like Florida's playing a little bit with house money, Robbie, to get to 6-1 at this point. Nobody expected it. And maybe they will. Maybe them coming out and playing loose and playing fired up and excited and fun, just having a great time, maybe it'll pay off for them.
Yeah, and you talk to some of the players, they look at this as a home game because it is in Florida, and they get on a bus and go to it, like Spurrier used to say. So I think they're pretty confident right now. Yeah,
Spurrier's been out of town during all this, selling tickets down for the Orlando Apollos. But if I'm Dan Mullen, I gotta at least walk down there and say, hey, you got any advice for me on this game? You only went 11-1 against them.
Yeah, or I would tell him, you need to talk to the team on Friday night or Saturday morning about your take on why Florida should win this game.
Because he hates Georgia.
He does.
That's the game he wants to win more than
Georgia beat him up that year that we were at our first Georgia game.
They cost him an SEC title, so he's fired up about him. In fact, remember when they dedicated the field, he talked about how Georgia beat him his senior year, and he said, we still got time to catch him, which
always one of his goals.
Yeah, which never back in Robbie and I went through the 80s with Vince Dooley and the 70s with Vince Dooley. But
Richard Appleby.
Yeah, there's some bad stories there. Yeah. But none of those matter. All that matters is who wins this game Saturday. It'll be exciting. It'll be a lot of fun. I think the atmosphere will be off the charts.
Oh, it will be.
Both game day and SEC Nation.
The drinking will be off the charts.
It will be. It is the world's largest outdoor cocktail party for a reason. I love saying it because people don't like it when I do, so I say it.
It is what it is.
It is, yeah. It's like saying
go there and watch.
You can't call it Everbank Field because we don't want you to do that. Well, that's what it's called.
But no, it's not. It's not Everbank Field anymore.
Yeah, it is.
It is?
I think it's TIAA Everbank Field.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. Let's just call it the Gator Bowl.
It's not just Everbank Field.
We'll call it the Gator Bowl and get the toilets overrun, so it'll be like old days. And the Maxwell House coffee smell coming in, and the pulp mill coming in. Cheap cigars, bourbon.
Right back to the 60s.
Yep, we'll be right back there. All right, that's going to do it. We'll be coming to you from Jacksonville. We'll be doing the Swampcast next from there, and we'll know who won the game. And obviously, we're going to have a lot to say because whatever happens is going to have a lot to do with the rest of the season for both teams.
Should be fun.
Should be fun. Until then, Pat Dooley, Robbie, Andreu, the Gainesville Sun saying so long from the Sunshine State.